Hey, Glenn here, the People's Carpenter. I'm just about finished this walnut slab coffee table, and it's a nice wee thing. I'm happy for whoever ends up owning it. I did say that there would be just one more video on this where I would do the legs and also finish the top. I've changed my mind. I'm going to split it into two just because it's the first time I've ever made tapered tenon legs going into tapered mortices, and well, that's an interesting thing all by itself, you know, if you're into that sort of thing. So this video is just really about how I made the legs and installed them. There's quite a bit of footage already, and that's why I decided not to try to add the finishing on the top as well. Just now I'm doing the stuff that will, don't want to give you any previews, that will go into the next video where I make the finishing touches to the top, just tidy up any final loose ends and apply a finish. Okay, so this one's all about legs. You know what I'm going to want to do to these legs is, I thought of ways that I might put features on the corners to make them not sharp corners anymore. I could have put them across my router table with a round over bit. That would have been perfectly fine. But I'm going to go about the whole leg making and installing process in a very traditional way. Instead, I'm going to initially, because I'm going to do some fancy things with the tenons that go into the underside of the table, initially I'm just going to plane the corners. Now, you might think you could put that in the vise and just hold the plane on an angle, do that. I could definitely do that. That would be simple. Some might even argue that that would be sensible, but you don't have to be. If you just want to get something done, then maybe do that. But you don't have to be simple or sensible when you're doing woodwork because you enjoy it, or when you're making videos. You can be, well, you can be a bit silly. I don't know if this is a bit silly, maybe it is sensible, but I want to make something that will hold a square piece on a 45-degree angle. I've already made the easy part. These are just two pieces of cedar, glued and nailed them together at a right angle, and that will hold the piece just fine. But how am I going to hold that so that each of these pieces is at 45 degrees? Well, I've thought about it for about 2 minutes, and I think I have the answer. It's going to involve more cedar, just because I've got lots of pieces of that sitting over here, so let's get those now. I don't want very much. Will that be enough? I'll give myself a bit more than that just in case I need it. It's better to have a little bit too much than not quite enough. See, the funny thing is, I'll happily use machines to make a jig so that I can then avoid using machines going forward. But my rationalization is that this is a one-off. Once you've got the jig, you can then use it to employ your hand tools forever, or as long as the jig lasts. So I've cut this piece in half, and now I've got, so the bevel doesn't go all the way from the top to the bottom, it goes about halfway down the board, halfway through the thickness of the board, and now I've got those bevels facing each other, and those two 45-degree angle bevels make a 90-degree angle, so that will sit upright. See? That's pretty basic geometry really, but it does come in handy. So let's glue this. I'm going to do that by making a hinge with tape. Opening the hinge and putting some glue in. Shutting the hinge and making a mess. Now that hinge might not be quite enough, so I'll just put a couple of clamps on with some light pressure to hold it in place. Okay, I'll come back a little bit later when that's had a chance to dry. Alright, so I'll just position this so that it overhangs slightly. Now I will just Now how will I hold it down? Well, what I'll do, so I'll put a workpiece in there, so now I've got something to clamp on. See? Clever. Okay, so I've got the clamps holding this in place, and I'm measuring a pretty decent 45-degree angle on each side. So I'm going to leave that overnight. While I'm waiting for glue to dry anyway, I may as well wait for a little bit more glue to dry. I've just clamped down a piece at the end which will serve as a stop, so that when I'm planing this away from right to left, the piece won't just slide out of the jig, it will hit the stop and stay put. So I've got my newly made jig clamped down to the bench, got a piece in there. That's where it stops, and let's just give this a try out. I'm using my number 6 plane here, which is designed to be a fairly aggressive plane. Obviously I'm not using it very aggressively. maybe going, it's sometimes difficult to discern what's against the grain and what's not when the grain is not particularly straight. That's better. This is working really well. Like, it's not moving. It's definitely being held at the right angle. Well, not a right angle, but you know, the correct angle. Let's get a bit more blade out there. Excellent. Okay. Well, that has gone perfectly. That's exactly what I was trying to achieve. So I'll continue doing this until I've taken about enough off. The first leg is sort of a guinea pig, which I'm going to use to just see how much I think should come off the corners. And the way that I'll make sure that each corner is planed about the same is I'll just measure the width of the strip that I'm planning off. So that's 10 mils. Well, I'm sold. I'm sold. I think this is great. Do I want to go further? Maybe I do. I think I'll take these strips up to 15 millimeters wide. So I'm working on the last leg now, but something that I've done on all the legs, I've gone back and made sure that I've done them all, is after I've done the big cuts with, I was using the number 6 for a while, I swapped over to the 5.5. I do slightly prefer that, but as good as they are, they're not quite as smooth and refined as this number 4. So after I've used those to get the dimensions and shape that I want, I'm then just touching the surface and taking a wafer thin. I would always think of Mr. Creosote's sketch from Monty Python when I say wafer thin. A thin shaving with the number 4 just to make everything nice and smooth so that there's less finishing to do later. And I'm actually doing that to all 8 faces of the leg. But for now, just one more corner to lop down to the right shape. Well, the planing is done for now, and just look at the sheen on that surface. You can get that with sanding, but you have to go up through the grits to a very high grit before you get anything that looks like that. It is easier, if you've got a well sharpened blade, it is much easier to get a really smooth surface using a bladed tool than an abrasive. Right, we've got 4 legs, or 4 leg pieces, 4 pieces that will become legs that have their basic shape. And now for the fun part. This really is why I've felt so impatient to get to this video, because this, ooh, I'm just telling you how much fun it's going to be. Why don't I show you instead? I do like a good unboxing. I probably like a bad unboxing too. I like unboxing. Veritas. What I have here is a tapered tenon cutter. Caution. Sharp. Well, I should hope so. Okay. So this will cut a taper onto the end of my leg, and that taper will then insert itself, well, I will insert it, into the tapered mortise. The tapered mortise is simply a drilled hole that I then shape into a cone, a taper, with this reamer. And the angle, do I remember what it is? But the angle on that is the same as the angle on this, so they will marry up. This is a taper that goes from 1 inch to 1/2 inch. And they fit together nicely. So I will put the tenon cutter on the end of this leg, twist it like a big old pencil sharpener, and make the tenon. Now obviously it won't fit over the end of this just yet, so I'll have to do some shaping work first. So I've made the markings on both sides, and that is the line I'm going to plane down to. And yes, I said plane. I've decided to go with my planes just because, well, I've already done one unboxing in this video, and the saw that I would have used to do that job would be another unboxing, and that might be a bit too much excitement. I'm going to use my number 6, also called the 4 plane, which is used, well, I mean, you can use it for whatever you want, but it's used to remove large amounts of stock in preparation for finer work with other tools or other planes. And you know what, just to mix things up a little bit, I will use a saw now. Right, now let's try and cut this taper. Oh, not quite. Not quite. What's a quick and dirty way of cutting that down? I'll use my Japanese file, Japanese rasp. The end of this wasn't quite going over the corners here. Right, are we ready? No, we're not. More manual work. Okay. Just marking where I'm going to have to aggressively shape it down to. So you have to make this thing, and I'm learning as I go, you have to make this thing almost just short of the actual final taper, and then this really will just finish it off. So that's how this is working. Okay, I will stop there. Now I have not at all included all the time that I spent refining that shape, because it was a very long time, maybe 25 minutes, and that's largely just down to me having never done this before and not having a proper understanding of how much material I would need to remove to begin with. But I'm happy with that, so I won't sand it up too much in the part that will insert into the table, because, well, there's just no point. It's going to be fairly tight. I'm going to knock it in, but I will sand up that transition, make that nice and tidy, after I have made one of these tapers on all 4 legs. Well, I do really like my Shinto saw rasp. Although it has blades, it is an abrasive tool, working like a rasp, taking lots of little cuts like the teeth of a file. And I am starting to more and more appreciate the cleanliness of cut produced by bladed tools, like my spoke shave. It's just so enjoyable that I don't want to get carried away and remove too much. Alright. First attempt, second attempt. I mean, they both look pretty good. It's just that that one has a smoother surface because of the use of the spoke shave. Well, if furniture building doesn't work out, I could always go into making humongous stationery for giants. We're getting close to the end here. I need to put these legs into the table, so I have to decide where the holes will be. Now, in theory, you could have legs going straight up and down, but no one ever really does that. I'm putting them on an angle, and there's no rule about what the angle should be. It is just a matter of personal preference. I'm putting them on that angle, and what is that angle? I don't know. But as long as all the legs are on the same angle, then it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So I'm just going to think about the location. Now, I've got this soft white watercolor pencil here, along with some sort of glue or epoxy stuck to it, and that's just to make it easy to mark the position. Now, I suppose what I should do is have the holes arranged on a rectangle, and I'm pretty sure that I want one there. Now, of course, no one is going to be inspecting the underside of the table to make sure that I'm adhering to some very precise engineering standards. This is just to make sure that I don't end up with things in weird locations. Okay, so that's given me some spots that look about right to me. And because they are a little bit difficult to see, I'm going to mark them with this reasonably fine punch. Now, I could have used a brace and bit to drill these holes, but I'm not very experienced using one of those, and especially not on an angle. So I'm just going to use my battery powered drill with a 12 millimeter bit, and I've got the angle that way for the hole, but what about the angle outwards? How should I decide what that will be? Without measuring the angle, shall I say that I will go 150 millimeters that way and 30 millimeters out and use that angle? No, that doesn't come out far enough for my liking, so let's say 50 millimeters out. No, actually, let's say 60. 150 millimeters that way, 60 millimeters out. Those of you at home who wish to can calculate that angle. I'm not going to. Yeah, that looks okay to me. That looks okay. So this is a brad point drill with that spike in the middle, so I can easily locate it in that hole that I've made. No going back, is there? From the original 12mm drill bit, it looks like there may be some tear out on the other side, but I'll continue with this for now because it doesn't make any difference to what I have to do here. Okay, so that's almost super tight. If I give it a few taps with the hammer, that will be really tight. Good, okay, that works well. Well, I have cut the legs to the same length as each other. I just need to make sure that one of the long faces faces the angle on which the leg is leaning, just so that they're all the same. I'm happy for there to be a fair bit of mess on the top because, well, the top still has some work to be done on it. Alright, I wanted to do the legs all at once, but I forgot that I put some super glue into some small cracks on this leg, so I'll just sand this one up and then I'll come back and do that one. I'm going to leave this alone now. I'll come back to it maybe this evening when everything is nice and dry. Only then will I turn it over. Gosh, that's kind of suspenseful, isn't it? So, I've taken it down from the table. It is the evening. It's quite cold this evening actually, not warm in this workshop, so I will just do this one small job and then I'll stop for the day. I'm just going to trim off. This is getting a little bit blunt, but it will do this job, I know, because I've already trimmed a couple of them off. Trim off the excess length of these tapered tenons. Alright, so I can see now that they have had varying degrees of success, these legs, or these tenons anyway. So obviously there are four tenons in there. I would say that one is pretty close to perfect in terms of gaps. All of the rest have gaps to varying degrees. That one probably the most. And that's just going to be caused by the fact that when I was drilling in with the brace, I didn't consistently maintain the same angle all the way in. And it would be easier with an electric drill that could accommodate that, could accommodate the reamer. But that's not bad. That's not bad. And I do have a, you might look at that and think, oh gosh, that's rather unsightly. I do have a plan for when I treat the top. That should make that perfectly tolerable. Okay, I'm happy with how this is going. It's a bit tall, or is it? I don't know, I mean, it's purely a matter of preference. How tall should a coffee table be? I'll think about it. But this might be okay to have if you're going to have your dinner on it. Yeah, maybe that'll be alright. I'll stop now, and if everything continues to go as I hope it does, I will be very pleased with the result. Let's find out if I am.